You're listening to This Week in Real Estate with your host, Rob Golfi. Brought to you by the Golfi Team at RE/MAX Escarpment, featuring Conrad Zurini, broker-owner of RE/MAX Escarpment Realty Inc., and Brian Hogben, owner of Mission 35 Mortgages. Let's hear what's going on in real estate this week.
This Week in Real Estate. And I'm here with Brian Hogben, broker-owner of Mission 35 Mortgages, and Conrad Zurini, broker-owner of RE/MAX Escarpment. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Before I get started, I just want to give a shout-out to Brian Hogben for throwing an amazing event and his team at Mission 35 Mortgages. We were at Glendale Golf Club yesterday for a wicked event, very successful. The weather was incredible. And Brian, do you just want to touch on the great that we supported there?
Oh, thanks, Phil. That's awesome. Yeah, glad you came out and represented your skills there. So, Conrad, we missed you on the course there, my friend.
I know.
But it was actually a great cut. Oh, I'm falling out my chair. It was actually, we were able to raise over $10,000 yesterday, too, for Mohawk City School. And it's a program that we've been affiliated with, Mission 35, a lot. And it's really simple. It helps kids, a lot of inner city kids in Hamilton, surrounding area, get a chance to go to college. You know, we sit and talk about a lot of things with real estate and real estate investment. And, you know, we look at world on a different light. And some of these kids, it's just amazing to me to grow up thinking that you wouldn't even be able to go to school. Like some of these kids, they end up thinking, I'm never even going to go to college. It's not even an option. And then all of a sudden they go to college. And I think that really, it changes somebody's life because, you know, it's kind of that idea. Like you teach them how to fish. They learn for a lifetime. You show them how to fish.
Yeah,
I got that wrong, but you know what I'm saying, right? So
yeah,
that was awesome. And I mean, those are families and kids right here in our own backyard here in Hamilton, directly associated with Mohawk College. So it
warms my heart. You know what? We had such a good, everybody was very giving yesterday, and over $10,000 that actually helps 15 kids go to school. Like 15 kids now get a college education because of everybody showing up and doing that yesterday. So really cool.
That's cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, really good. So Conrad from Miami Beach, a few palm trees in the backyard.
Yeah. No, I'm in balmy Burlington right now. Balmy Burlington.
That's hilarious. That's true. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. I wanted to touch on, and it's a question for Brian on the mortgage side. We continue to see rents rise, right? We've seen average price points come down. We've seen unit sales come down, and that's what's been the focus in terms of the articles that are coming out. But let's talk about how this correlates to rent. And my question to you, Brian, how often do you see somebody come in for an application looking for affordability, looking for help, looking for some guidance, and then all of a sudden there's just not enough there and they're turned into a renter? And you know, how much has that happened in the previous market and this current market right now?
You know what? That's a good question, Phil. And you know what? I don't think, because there was an article that we're talking about too, but I don't see it happen as often as you think, because I think people who actually look for a home, and if they don't qualify because of rising interest rates or whatever issue, you don't see them give up so easily, you know, because home ownership is a dream for most Canadians. People want to own a home. So then they reach out to bank of mom and dad and say, Mom and Dad, will you co-sign, right? Will you help? What other options? Can we rent out? Like we had one just recently where dad had to co-sign and they bought a house with an in-law. Like that's resiliency to get into the house, and it's still possible, right? So I don't think, and maybe we're different, you know, we always encourage home ownership because I think buying a home, no matter what the time, is the right thing to do. It could be at a high or a low. As long as you have that long-term strategy, you're good. And I think you just have to explore all the different opportunities and resources available to you to get into home ownership. So to your question, Phil, I would say not many.
Well, you know what's interesting? Just to add to Canada Life just did a study, and they said 50% of renters said that they will be renting indefinitely.
Right.
So it was the Canada Life just did a study. Yeah, it just came out.
And that's when we see the rental population continue to grow, as well as the investor population continue to grow. Right now, I believe the investor population has grown at 4%. It was 19% of owners are investors. It's now up to 22%. And you know, there's some articles that go into and how that amplifies the housing market. On the way up, it's going to amplify it even more, and as well as on the way down, it's gonna be, you know, much greater in terms of the appreciation and depreciation. Just to give you a stat right now, 2-bedroom flats in Hamilton today are renting out at an average of $2,063 per month in Hamilton, whereas a 1-bedroom apartment is going for around $1,600, $1,650 in terms of the rental market in our current in today's market. And we haven't seen those prices change. So it just makes it very interesting in terms of what's going to happen with the rental rates and where they're going to go in comparison to where the housing market's going. So that's something that, you know, I'm always interested in seeing what happens. But it's been there's been a few articles released, one calling it, you know, where the housing market was the greatest party ever, and now we're having a hangover.
Yeah, it's true.
If you want hangovers is feeling, and as we all know, hangovers aren't the best feeling. But in terms of how it's, if you were to describe what this hangover, this housing market hangover feeling would be, how would you describe it right now, Conrad?
The hangover. Well, look, there was that huge. Well, a couple of things, couple of factors. It was a huge increase in values Q1, definitely, and I think we're starting to see them level off. So the height of the market was, we can actually pinpoint it, February 2022, without a doubt. Like we can pinpoint March. It was March 1990 when the market collapsed after the crazy 80s. But yeah, so we saw the top of the market. Well, just as quickly as it came in Q1, I think you're going to see the bottom hit probably, if it's not this month, June's numbers. We're starting to see some, 2 stories in Ancaster up about 1.6%. So we might see the bottom in the next, either month, maybe by July. CMHC came out with a huge thing today. I don't know if you guys saw this. We have a shortage of $5.6 million properties in Canada. And until over the next 10 years, and they said, unless we can see those kind of numbers, like, let's say they're talking about a couple hundred, like 500,000 a year, they're not going to see any price drops. And rents increased 4.5% in Canada overall, and in Saint PEI, they went up 12% in a single month. So yeah, this hangover, a hangover like leaves. I think we're, you pop a couple of whatever, vitamin D and have
blue Gatorade.
Yeah,
well,
Gatorade.
I think to that hangover analogy, I think it depends how much you drank. Because there's always a couple people at the party that were doing keg stands and shots, okay? And I think there were some investors that they were the party animals. They were doing the shots of Jägermeister. And I think they're going to have a long hangover, right? Because there's going to be some investors, I think, and some home buyers just like that bought at a peak and maybe took the wrong term or wrong mortgage. But I think that's a small portion. Right? Everybody at the party had, I would say 75 to 80% of the people had a small hangover and took a pill and woke up fine. But a small amount, it's going to linger.
And I think the overbuying or like people paid, it's going to level off. Like it took like the 90s. I mentioned the 90s. It took till 1997 for prices in Toronto to become level with 1989. And it took us till 1999. I can tell you, I don't see it at all. I think we're going to see a bottoming out here, and then we're going to see it back on the increase. There's just not enough supply. And number one reason for non-supply, they're talking the trades.
Right.
We don't see, and
that's
a long-term issue. That's not something you can fix overnight. So real estate's still going to be a great investment. And it's interesting how CMHC finally realized that household creation in Canada is growing at a rapid rate, and housing is not meeting that demand, and that's where we are now.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, did you have something?
No, you know what? I just agree with Conrad there. I think it's small. I think the time now we're seeing money start to flow back into investments, and we're seeing people are operating their cash flow numbers based on real rates now. they've built in increases. They're saying, okay, if I'm going to have a 4% rate right now, what's my cash flow? What does it look like? So people starting to have that conversation and re-enter the market now shows me that people are investing again with smart decisions. And I think we had 60 days or 90 days of none of that. And now I see people looking and talking about that again.
Yeah, it was CMHC that came out at the beginning of the pandemic that came out with this blanket statement that was said, housing prices were going to fall 17%. We went the complete opposite way, but I think you might be able to apply that statement to today's market, which is interesting. So for people out there who are looking every mark.
Think Phil. Yeah.
Froze, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Can hear you.
Yep.
You're back.
So we're back. So what areas in terms of neighborhoods where are we seeing prices hold the strongest? You mentioned Ancaster, we're still up 1.6% amongst two-story detached. Where's that price confidence holding in our local markets today right now?
Well, I find that I find like the borders of like where things, I find areas like East Burlington, it's holding, Southeast, Northeast. I find Bronte's doing quite well, better than Central Oakville, St. Catharines. I would say Grimsby and Beamsville, another pretty solid area in terms of pricing that we're seeing there. I think it's really holding. Stony Creek, a lot of Stony Creek well, Phil, right? It's a very ethnic community, and these guys they don't have mortgages like they would in other areas, and they are definitely holding the holding price. I just did 50 Point, Community Beach there. It's holding well. Average price like for a two-story was in the 1,150,000. Like that's pretty solid, when you think about it, right? Because there's a lot of small detached in there, so that's holding well. Yeah. I think being close to transportation is going to win the day. I think for and it's always been something, right? Like being on the highway or at GO stations and things like that for some part. But those are areas that are doing well, really well.
Awesome. I always go back to the location, right? Like we went through this crazy market and people just kind of turned a blind eye and got away from their investing or buying framework, right? And we've seen a lot of people make some poor mistakes when it came to home buying, and we've seen certain properties come right back up for sale for that reason. But as long as in my opinion, you have a really nice product on a really nice street in a nice area, you're going to do well in this market any single day of the week. And that's what I keep reiterating to a lot of people out there is if you're going to follow the news, you're going to follow the media, and you're going to read the stats, and on a granular level, you're going to find something that's going to make you a little bit fearful of this market. You find something that's going to make you a little bit scared. But if you stretch out those numbers, or even over the course of 5 years, I always say, go back to anybody who bought in 2017. We thought that was crazy. Look where they are now. They've appreciated significantly, not just over the last 2 years, but over the last 5 to 6 years. And they've built, a ton of price appreciation and equity in their home. That's given them a really nice life. So if you have a micro focus on the last 3 months or 4 months, it's going to be very difficult for you to pull out some positive information. But year over year, we're still up to 25%, 30% in a lot of areas. And as we stand today, it's a little blip in the market that we're going to have to work through. Stay positive and start to generate some more buying confidence in the market. So it's like, again, it's just something that we're working through, and I know on my end, and I'm interested to hear about Brian. You said you had a team meeting, and wanted to, just help out and support your team. What were some of the things that were said in that meeting to your team?
Well, I think it's just like meeting clients where they're at. Everybody's at different stages. Some people are experiencing tough times right now, right? So it's kind of meeting them where they're at and exploring the options. And I do like your, like we were talking about, being optimistic, but not with false hope, right? You don't want to, blow the wool over or blow the smoke screen and say, oh, rates aren't that bad. Well, they are for some people. Rates are rising. Mm-hmm. There are increases, right? And some people do have some real problems with it. But I think you just have to bring it back with the optimism that this too shall pass. And if you've owned a home for 2 or 3 years, you've got a tremendous amount of equity, you've paid down a tremendous amount of principal, and kind of bringing them back to the long-term strategy. It's like, hey, if you're having cash flow problems right now, do you want an interest-only line of credit? So maybe you get some cash flow issues. Do you want to re-amortize, right? Because like you said, Phil, the news in front of us right now, it sure doesn't look great sometimes. But when you put it in the context of, the lifespan of owning a home, it is a blip, right? So just making sure you meet people where they're at and, just reiterate what actually is possible. Because sometimes you forget. Like, oh, yeah, my house did go up 35-40% over the past 2.5 years. So I'm still up more than the average.
Yeah.
Significantly. Okay, I feel good about that now, right?
Yeah, that's a great message for everyone, and we'll leave it there. Sorry for the technical difficulties to all our viewers. We had a little intermission or a little interrupt there, but I appreciate everyone, still staying with us and listening. Have yourselves a great weekend, and Rob will be back next week. Hopefully, he's got a nice little tan to show off, and I'm sure he'll share some of the details from his trip. So, guys, always again, thank you so much for doing this. You guys are awesome. This is so helpful to us, to all our viewers, and to our entire team. There's a bunch of good information here that we love sharing with them. So thanks again, and have yourselves a great weekend, okay?
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, buddy.